right, you guys. So, I would like to say hello to everybody and just start with introducing Puzzle Box here.
Hello, everybody. I am Puzzle Box.
All right, I would also like to say we have a pretty interesting topic specifically for the Pauper individuals. Um, we're going to be discussing mana rocks that we specifically find viable for the format, healthy for the format, or like why you're playing these instead of playing other mana rocks kind of thing. So, um, let's get it started. We have some honorable mentions, right? Arcane Signet, right? We have our commons, Felwar Stone, our two mana rocks. Essentially, any two mana rock that comes into play untapped. That's a shoe in, right? That's shoe in right in the door.
Yeah, typically they're very playable at worst.
At worst, right? So I mean, thought vessel, so on and so forth, right? We,
Right.
we do have one in specific that doesn't see a lot of love in the format. This is pretty much our one honorable two mana rock that I'd like to give the floor to you, Puzzle, and let's start with a Prismatic Lens.
Yeah, so Prismatic Lens, 2 mana rock, comes in untapped, taps for a colorless, and also gives you the ability to filter one of your mana. So it works in conjunction with a lot of the other 2 mana rocks that come in untapped but only make colorless mana. Functions with them, helping you to filter that mana. But compared to some of the other 2 mana rocks that make colorless, I think this is probably better than them, especially, we talked about Thought Vessel. Uh, all Thought Vessel does, in addition to being an untapped 2 mana rock, is give you no maximum hand size, which isn't amazing. It doesn't come up that often. I think having the access to a filter is probably generally going to come up more frequently.
Well, I would say because of like our format, right? Like in general, we are very like budget friendly, right? So Thought
Right.
Vessel is what, like a $2-3 card. Like Prismatic Lens is like what, 10 cents or 15 cents or something like that. And also too in the multicolor dynamic because we don't have the dual lands and fetch lands and things like that. This is just going to filter anything past two plus colors, right? It's a better land
Yeah.
or better rock for your lands, right? Just all the
It
above.
gets a little awkward when you start talking about like the 3 color decks because they want to play more just mana rocks that can tap for a color in the first place rather than a rock that can filter. So it starts getting questionable in that range. And it sits in a really weird spot. But I think if you're considering Thought Vessel, unless you really, really want that max hand size, I'd probably play Prismatic Lens over that.
I can definitely give that to you. Like I agree. But let's move on to three oof, our three CMC mana rocks, right? Like it's a
Easy
pretty
does
good
in
list. It's a pretty good little
it.
list we have here. I'm just gonna work our way alphabetically, starting from A and work our way down. And kind of, we're not gonna be touching base on all of them, of course. We're just gonna be kind of going through. Like we have also a few honorable mentions in those as well, right? So like we have the banners, right? Just
Yeah, yeah. Banners are okay. You have to be in 3 color to play them, which makes them a little bit awkward. And because of that, they don't see much play in the first place because we don't have many 3 color options that are viable.
yeah,
And then on top of that, you're already playing probably a slew of other 3 mana rocks if you're in 3 colors. So it gets a little awkward and they don't see much play. But they are potentially viable.
yeah. Like if you're trying to maximize your mana rocks, which there are a few decks in the format that would like to do that, right? But like
Right.
so with the whole banner, right? So we have a kind of a whole assortment of that color schemes, right? So we have the banners, which are the 3 color. We have the clue stones, which are the 2 color. And all these that I'm essentially naming right now, all have like a sacrifice draw card.
and the lockets as well for 2 color. Yep.
Exactly. So like they all sacrifice to draw a card. The Lockets specifically draw 2 cards, but they in a control deck environment, I like the Lockets best moving to the Clue Stones in 2 colors. Past 2 colors, I'm going to play an assortment of the 3 of them because I would like to draw cards late game once my rocks become invalidated, right? Like that's kind of the way I look at it in a go tall control deck, right?
Yeah, even and there are edge cases where you want to play lockets even if you're not control. Like I play Commander Liara Porter, which is
Hmm.
a really strong affinity deck, cast artifacts for free, and lockets and clue stones and all that are pretty playable because when you're casting mana rocks for free and drawing 3 cards every turn, the mana rocks start to not be great pretty fast.
Well, like that's kind of like so the thing with our format. I'm just gonna make a quick caveat here, away from these mana rocks for everybody. Um, Specifically, there are so many, just like Magic. This is one, my opinion, one reason Magic is great. There's so many decks that kind of cancel almost everything we say, right? And like your
Yeah,
Liara is a perfect example, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna play them all, or oh, I'm not gonna play any, right? Like, so there's always exceptions for the rules. That's one reason that Magic is great. So we are specifically right now not trying to like say this deck is good or this deck is bad because it's running or not running these rocks. More so from a generalized term, like this rock would be good in this specific deck because of this reason. And of course, like Liara is it's an amazing deck. It steamrolls really hard. It's actually
it
quite
is Winota.
yeah. It's quite impressive how like their Wizards is still printing more and more to assist us in having decks that are able to continue to Ragavan the format. You resolve
Right.
this, and it if it gets going, what's happening now? We're just gonna start steamrolling people. So it's quite impressive. But jumping back to what we're doing right now, let's actually move on to the next one, Puzzle. Like I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one specifically. So our next one is Altar of the Pantheon. What do you think about that one? It's
It's not great.
right.
It is very, very specific. If your commander is Gary, uh, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, you probably can play this. It's a mana rock that increases your devotion. Aside from that, you're probably not playing this one.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. Like, I don't want to play this. There's no reason I would want to play this. Even in a deck like Mono Black, like Gary is the commander, I would just rather play a removal spell, right? Like, it's just
You could
not
play
on my to do
Charcoal
list.
Diamond.
Yeah, like it's just not on my to do list, right? Like, I'd rather just rinse and repeat and play, Gray Merchant over and over
Yeah,
and over again. So, all right, so that's an easy one. One that I have to say sees a ton of play. We're gonna go over probably this one a little bit more than typical than a lot of these other ones because this one sees
the
a
big
ton of
one.
play. Yeah, ton of play, and it's Bonder's Ornament. So, Puzzle, let's start us off with this one. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think Bonder's Ornament is near staple level. Um,
Oof.
Not only because
Those are big
this
words.
card,
Those are big words.
yeah, yeah.
Those are big words.
I think the card is strong. Yes. Our format doesn't have many forms of uh, permanent card draw that you can activate multiple times, right?
Mhm.
Most of our card draw is one time use, so it does get a benefit from that. But also, because this card is generally seen as a strong card, that means other people are playing it, which means if you have one in play, it disincentivizes other people from activating theirs and or draws you cards with no investment.
I will have to say though, like 4 mana though, right? Like That's
It's
a
not what you want to be doing. No.
yeah, right? Like
But sometimes it does come down to that, especially in these grindier games.
okay.
And you're like, well, I have no cards in hand. What do I do with my mana? Guess I'm gonna pay 5 to draw a card.
Yep.
It sucks, but sometimes you gotta do it.
I will say through my personal experience with this card, I have in 50 games seen one of 50 where two players had a Bonders ornament, which is kind of weird because I kind of have the similar opinion that you do. I believe it is staple level. Um, I got a little bit different aspect on the format than you about this card. I do play because comes in, you do your thing, right? But
Yep.
I'm a little wishy washy on all of the three mana rocks. Call me crazy, but like
It's your CEDH mentality, right? Like in
it's a little
CEDH,
bit.
3 mana rocks are unplayable, and that's just the way it is.
Well,
That's too slow.
we do have a good amount of two mana rocks though, right? And we still get the
Right.
rituals, we still get these things. And with recent cards that have been printed, our format has now moved up in speed. So in so if you would have asked me 3 months ago, these three mana rocks, I would have told you I play these in my decks, right? Just in general, not specific decks. I do play them in those
Yeah.
decks. Now, I'm starting to slot these out and replacing them for the two mana come into play tapped. Because it's a mana less, even though it comes into play tapped, I'm taking the risk than this three mana. So this is kind of like why we're doing this to begin with, because like Bonner's Ornament is kind of like the poster child, I would like to say, of what we're talking about here with like progressing your board state, drawing cards, and continuing to do the grind game, right?
So that was an interesting point, though. 2 mana rocks that enter tapped versus 3 mana rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, like if in terms of net mana, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, on the turn you play them, they're both 2 mana functionally.
Yep.
You do need 3 mana to play the 3 mana rock, so it does have that extra caveat. But in terms of net mana, they are both 2 mana. So there's an interesting dynamic there as well.
Yep. I do agree. I do agree. So on curve, two manas are better, obviously.
For sure. Yeah.
But late game, Bonner's Ornament will get there. It's just with the format speeding up, this is kind of like where this is so important, in my opinion, like specifically
Right.
speaking about these. So let's move on to the next one, though. I don't think we have a lot to say about, in fact, the trinity of these. They
Yeah.
printed in Boulder's Gate a few of these dragon rocks. Do you want to just hit all three there, puzzle, and kind of we'll go
Sure.
through them?
So the red one gives haste to your dragon if you cast it using that mana. Green one is probably the best one. Gives hexproof until your next turn and a counter. And the blue one scries too. I think these are great if and only if you have a dragon as your commander that you want to cast multiple times in a game and or protect with hexproof from the green one specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously these are very situational and by no means in every deck.
Yep. Agree. Agree. So we'll just kind of like push those aside. There's not much to say about them. You like dragons? Play it. You don't like dragons? Leave them alone. Like it's very simple. One of our next ones, which I have to say, I kind of like over Bonder's Ornament, which I know I'm going to catch a lot of grief for this one, but I like the zero mana sack, is Commander Sphere. Um, Let me just start on this because I know I'm going to catch grief
Go
about this
for
one.
it.
I like to play control decks because of the format. I like to tap out a lot. I like being able to not have a mana investment when I need to take a critical turn and sacrifice it when need to, net me a card, end of turn, net me a card so I continue with my game plan forward. It's only one card, but it's zero investment. It's just whenever I get that itch, whenever I start flooding, I can still net that one card, and it's free, right? There's no stifle of our format. I mean, we have the Chrome Shell
We have
crab,
one.
but yeah,
Yeah.
like, but is that really like people are gonna
They're
hit
not
on
gonna
it?
stifle Commander Sphere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think? Am I crazy for this one? Like, what's your opinion on this one?
So when I first started playing this format, this I refused to play this card because
Oh, those are big
I
words.
I came from EDH and I was
Okay.
always preaching that this card is unplayable in EDH. Um, Nowadays I think this card is pretty decent for Pauper Commander.
Okay.
You know, it's like so I just realized this like 2 weeks ago, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say it.
Uh oh.
But
Uh oh.
compare Commander Sphere to a Clue Stone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
It
free.
is
It's free.
better.
Yeah, it's free,
It is
right?
objectively better. They
Yes.
both draw a card. This one, if you're in 3 colors, it taps for one of any 3 colors. It's just better. And I was playing a Clue Stone in
Oh no.
Liara,
Oh no.
and then I was like, I can just switch this to a card we'll talk about later, I'm sure. Letter of Acceptance,
Oh
which
yes.
is a better locket because it doesn't have a color requirement.
Yep.
And then I realized I'm not playing Commander Sphere and it's just better. So I just forgot this card existed because I never play it.
I get it.
And yeah.
So we'll hit on a small caveat at the end of this, and we'll kind of give our opinions of like 1 through 3, and say like what we think specifically at the end of this. But let's move on. Let's move on so we don't do this forever, right? We got a few more to go. Dark Steel Ignite. I'd like to start off on this one. As horrible as it is, no one destroys things in our format, right? It's
Yep.
indestructible, so on and so forth. But
It's bad.
it's bad,
Don't
right?
play it.
Like,
Don't play it.
I hate to say that. I hate to say that, right? I don't want to say
But
don't
unless
play
you
it.
plan on animating this or doing some
Right.
really janky stuff with it, I would not play this.
Right. It's just it's there. It is. So be it. I'm sorry, Ignit. I used to play
I
you.
don't play this in my casual colorless deck.
I mean, I used to play
Like,
it in 2014. I used to
yeah,
play it in 2014, right?
yeah.
Like, so here we are. This one actually, I'd like you to speak about. I have thoughts about this one. I'll just start.
The big thought vessel.
I think it's bad. I don't play Thought Vessel, so why am I gonna play bigger Thought Vessel, right? So let's take it
Yeah,
away. Let's do the Decantor of Endless Water, right?
yeah. It's one extra mana on thought vessel to have it tap for colored mana, which is a valuable upside. But I'd still rather play Thought Vessel over this, having it come down a turn earlier. And yeah, I typically don't play Thought Vessel. Chet agrees. So
Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
I don't think this one's very good.
All right, yeah, I second that. I agree. I agree. They got nothing to say about it. I'm not even a fan of the magic carp looking art, right? Like, not
It
for
is
me.
kind of cool. I like it,
Do
but
you? Do you? Okay, okay.
yeah, I do
I'm
like
not a
that art.
fan. I'm
But
not a fan. I'm not a fan. Let's move on to the border posts. What are your thoughts on them?
I think these are almost playable. Um, I feel like you need to be in a deck that cares about like land drops for this, which is kind of weird because typically that would imply Simic, and Simic just doesn't usually play rocks in the first place. So it's in a bit of a weird spot. But I think the border posts are okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm like here with the border posts. Like, I like it. I don't like it. I'm kind of like I'm on both ends of the spectrum, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're in that weird spot that bounce lands kind of fill where they're like it quote unquote guarantees you a free land drop, right?
Yeah,
as well as
like
this one ramps you in addition to that. So it's like kind of weird, but
yeah, it's so I think they are good. Don't get me wrong. Now, this is old legacy me, right, speaking. I think they do have situations where they will be more powerful than other cards. But until the format progresses to a state to where these are more viable, I'm not going to include them in a deck, right? Like I'm going to draw it late
yeah,
game and be
I don't
sad,
play it
right?
much
Yeah.
either. Yeah.
So let's move on then. Fountain of Ichor. I mean, we get a little dinosaur, right? I actually have a little soft spot in my heart for all these that animate and can beat somebody down, especially with the initiative running around and the monarch and everything.
Yeah.
But if you ask me to put this in my deck, I'm gonna look at you and go, not putting it in my deck. I'm gonna just play a removal spell, and instead of letting you clock me, I'm just gonna remove your dude and have a better mana rock, right? Like it's kind of where we're at. Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Typically I'm not gonna play this unless my deck has very specific synergy with this. Like I have a really funny Banishing Knack deck where you can slap a Banishing Knack on this thing and untap it, and it gets really weird
Oh, that's
because you
kind of
get like
cool.
double untap triggers, and it's weird. But yeah, typically I wouldn't play this. I guess if your meta has a lot of initiative, though, maybe.
Yeah, I could see it. All right, well, let's move on to the next one then. Okay, so this one's a win condition, right? So
Yep.
like this is the chalice, right? So it enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. It adds a colorless, 3 mana. Pretty simplistic, right?
Yeah, this is just a win condition for white X decks that can flicker infinitely
Yep, right.
and can't find a better win condition.
Like the best part about this card is what Abdel dot deck, right? Like Abdel
Yeah,
dot deck. This is
Abdel, mono white,
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. You
It's a
have to
colorless flicker win condition.
yeah, like you have to tell me why you don't play this card if you're playing a flicker deck and it's going to be blinking this, right? Like you need to be like, I'm not playing this because of these many reasons. Because if not, like, what are we doing here? Like this literally says kill all your opponents. Like this is how
And
you
it's a
win the
mana rock
game.
in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
Yeah.
it's just it's a good card. I will say I think this is one of our cards on the list that is underrated. This one I believe should see more play. It does not see as much play as deserved. So, but let's move on to the next one. This one, I don't think you're liking my opinion about this one. So
Boy.
let's move on. Honored Heirloom. This is all right. I'm gonna start with this one. All right,
Go for
all
it.
right. I'm not sure how you're gonna feel about me after this one. I think this card is bad. Just bad. Why would you play this card? Everyone loves this card. So I'm going to get attacked like this on crazy. I already know it. I haven't voiced my opinion about it. But why do you play this? Like as a mana rock, am I going to put a card in my deck that I'm not going to be using as a mana rock? I'm going to be sitting it I'm going to put it in play. It's going to sit there and I'm not going to use it for mana because I need to make sure you don't combo off. So I'm going to stop myself from playing the game to stop you from playing the game. And then I'm like stopping myself from stopping you. And I just get this card's just like, I get if you have nothing better to do, but why don't you just put something better in your deck? Like to me, that's logical, right? Like you put a better card in your deck to stop that interaction, and then you don't need this card. You play the better cards. So this card to me is just it's so overrated. When it
So
got
how do you feel
released,
about
okay.
Grave Hate in general?
Oh, I love Graveyard Hate. I play Relic in a lot of decks. I play Spellbomb. Like I love Graveyard Hate, Bajuku Bog and things of that nature. I like it, but this isn't Graveyard Hate. This is spot removal graveyard. So if you have 3 opponents, you're going to pick an opponent you want to stop and then deal with them, but you're not progressing your game plan. A mana rock is supposed to do its thing, get thrown out, but this doesn't do that. It just exiles one card. One card.
So I think you're looking at the ability on the card too much and forgetting that this is still a mana rock, you know? Like you don't have to use it for that. Um and then when that's relevant, you probably should be holding up that mana anyways, right?
So are we a control deck then? Like
Um
it's a hard card to really assess because I don't like it for what it does. I'd rather play better cards, which I know sounds horrible. Like I'd rather play something that's going to move me in a forward direction instead of split me from
yeah.
wanting to do one thing and not wanting to do another thing, right?
Yeah, when I put this card in my deck, which I do frequently, um I don't count it. I'm not playing it because it's Grave Hate. I'm playing it because I need another mana rock, and this has a good alternative ability if I don't need to use it as a mana rock. That's the way I see it.
Okay.
So I
Yep.
like having the option to interact if necessary, but for me, it's a mana rock.
So I'll give you that you do that for sure. I have not seen it play that way though. Like when I see this come in play, people are like, I'm not using it because I know you're a combo deck, so we're gonna stop this flicker
That definitely
shenanigans.
happens sometimes,
Yeah.
for sure.
So it just sits there forever and a day, just sitting there, doing literally nothing, and you're like, that's the worst mana rock I think I've ever seen. Like it doesn't do anything. It just sits there, like threatening the table. And then
Yeah,
they
you really have to know the state of the game and whether they're actually going to be able to combo and if you need to hold that up at the moment or if you can use it.
Yep.
So it requires some good game knowledge to use properly.
Yep. Agreed. So that was my kind of hot take on the honor heirloom. I'm sorry about that. I'm not a fan of it. I know it's a very popular card of the format, but I've never played it and I won't play it. It's just
Fair.
kind of me, but I could see why people truly play it. Like I get it. It isn't as bad as I'm kind of making it out to be. Let's be realistic.
Yeah,
But
it does still stop some combos.
correct,
So
it
like
does. It does. It does. So it does do those things, but I see it putting a lot of people in bad situations. So I'd rather just have below the board state or graveyard, for example, than one at a time, unless you're able
yeah,
to do multiple instances. So, but let's move on to the next one. Letter of acceptance. You actually spoke about this one earlier. So, like, what are your thoughts on this one?
better Cluesto
Right?
insert.
I agree. Yeah, it's
You
just,
can play them both if you want, but
yep. It's
play this before Cluestone and play Commander Sphere before this.
agreed. Agreed. Nothing more to say about that one. So here's the next one, and they just did the new art on this one. Magnifying glass. In Jumpstart, they just did the art for this one.
Yeah,
Not my cup of tea. Don't like it. Not gonna play it.
typically it's a worse Bonders ornament, quote unquote. There's still the Bonders ornament thing where people have multiple, but one, this doesn't tap for colored mana,
Mm-hmm.
and two, you have to pay four to make an artifact, which you then have to spend another two to draw a card with. So
Yeah.
unless you care about having artifacts, eh.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Next, Mana Geode. Doesn't do it for
Abdel,
me. Abdel.
Abdel.
Yeah. You.
That's what I have to say about this one.
Yeah, so you just grind through your deck, right? I mean, that's the same argument with the chalice, right? Like we're just gonna
Yep.
burn through our deck. So it is what it is.
But
Besides
yeah,
that,
I don't like it outside of Abdel for the most part.
yep, agreed. I wouldn't play it outside of Abdel. Here's actually one that sees a ton of play. I think this will be our last big one of the day. Network terminal. Uh, Yeah, what do you think, Puzzle? What do you think? This one's
So this one is similar to Bonder's Ornament, except it's significantly cheaper. But it does require you to tap artifacts. But if you're playing an artifact deck and you have an Acre Wellspring or something sitting around, who cares? It is only draw and then discard, so it is a loot instead of card advantage. But I think this one's pretty playable. I think it's very good.
it's got the thing that's weird about this card, like, so you know me, I'm a looting person. That's like my favorite aspect about the Pauper
It
format.
is your commander.
Yeah, I if I could draw and discard cards, we're making this happen. This reminds me of 2010 Magic, 2007 Magic, right? Like, I played in those days, and I love old school ensnaring bridge Merfolk looter decks, right? And this reminds me of that era. I still don't play the card though. That's the bad part about it. Like, it's the one extra, like the tap and untapped artifacts, what draws me away from it. So I feel like I'm going through so many hoops to be able to do this. And it's just like, with all these hoops that I got to go through to get this and make this happen, it's kind of rough for me to play this card. Now, would I? Yes. Do I currently? No. So that's kind of like where I'm at with this card.
And it also depends on like how many mana rocks you play, right? Like
Oh, oh, definitely.
in
I
some
agree.
in some ways this says tap one land, one mana rock, and this.
Yeah.
So 3 mana, draw and discard, which is not awful for an ability that's also just stabled on a mana rock.
So,
So I think it's definitely good.
so it's better than Bonder's Ornament.
Better, not objectively. You don't net a card, but it can be better than Bonder's Ornament depending on the deck for sure. Yes.
Yeah, right synergies. I would replace Bonder's Ornament from a deck for this for sure. But that was Networks Terminal. So let's move on to the next one. We have the oof. Okay, so this one is just the city's blessing, right? So we're at the relic now. Not a
Yep.
ascend. We gotta have the 10 permanent, so on and so forth, colorless.
So
We got
initially I see this and I'm like, it's not great. But it is somewhat comparable to Commander Sphere. It doesn't tap for colored mana, which is a little rough, and you can't activate it until later. But you don't want to activate Commander Sphere until later, typically in the first place.
yep, agreed.
Um, it's still rough because that colored mana can be a big deal, especially for a 3 mana rock. But it's not horrendous.
It's not my cup of tea. Um, the 3 life is 3 life, but
Yeah, I
I
don't care too much about the 3 life,
yeah,
but
if I was, I'm not playing this card. I'll be honest with you. Just I'd rather play Mana Geode or something over it.
yeah, this is an option if you really want card draw on a mana rock in like monocolored.
Yeah,
But once you're in 2 color, you have access to
way more, way
all
more.
the lockets, clue stones, letter,
Right.
blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Like
you
yeah,
don't have to meet this weird stipulation, right? Like, you're
yeah.
just going with it, going. So let's move on. So we have Pristine Talisman. I used to love this card, for the record. I used to play it in normal Commander, actually, like just standard
Really.
EDH. Yeah, I know. Yeah, showing my age, right? But I for the record, though, the Exquisite Blood Sanguine Bond combo, like, this does win the game, right? So let's just
Yeah,
throw that. Let's
yeah.
just
Let's
throw
see
that
that
out
in Pauper.
there.
Let's see that in
But
Pauper.
oh, well, we have it. We have it, right? So, but that's a very specific. Like, you got to be playing like a Witherbloom style deck, with little vampire critters running around. But excluding the one deck, I think I just named. Are we playing this card? Like, no,
I
right?
don't think so.
Like
Um,
infinite mana in Abdel, right? Once again, we would go
yeah,
back
you
to
gain
Abdel.
infinite life in Abdel.
But but
But
I'd
even then,
I
you have better things to do.
yeah, like we could just beat them with the chalice or scry our whole deck and draw what we want to draw, right? So it's just we
Yeah,
have better options. So moving on, Seer's Lantern. Uh, Once again, fall back to Abdel. 2 mana tap it scry, right? You could scry your deck if you don't have the mana geode yet, right? So
yeah. So message here: Abdel plays whatever he wants.
yeah,
Um, I've seen a couple people play this one. I've never been impressed by it particularly. I don't think it's amazing.
yeah, I'm in the same boat. Essentially, all of these could go in Abdel, right? And there's an
Yeah,
argument to actually playing 21 mana rocks plus in Abdel, right?
they are rituals in Abdel.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So, but we can't use it for every example, right? That's just like saying, oh, Thassa's Oracle beats all decks, like with
yeah,
mana consultation. So we can't use that argument here. So let's move on to the next one. Unstable Obelisk. This is the other one on the list that I have to say I wish it saw more play.
I've been seeing some people pick it up recently, actually. But
Really? Like, I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of the card. It's 7 mana though, which is just back. Or like 7 mana, sack it, destroy target permanent. That's so
I
much
think this
mana.
card's pretty doo doo.
Do you?
Um,
Uh oh. Uh oh. Uh oh. Okay.
one, taps for colorless. Does not make colored mana. If this made
Yep.
colored mana,
Better. Better. Okay. Okay.
better, better.
Okay.
And yeah, 8 mana is rough. It does hit lands, so it does have that, I guess. But
Sure. In our
wow,
format, what do you? What
if
do you?
you don't want to hold up 3 mana for Honored Heirloom, I don't see a world where you're holding up 8 mana for Unstable Obelisk.
I could kill your commander when you try to beat me.
Yeah,
Technically.
you sure could.
Yeah. I'm making arguments for bad cards here now. So like, it's
It's playable if you want a lot of mana rock. It
an
is a mana
an
rock
elf
that does have relevant text on it. But
an elf deck, right? You play this in an elf deck. If
just
you
play
just
mana dorks. Why are you playing mana rocks in an elf deck?
you got no other way to kill anything. Like mono green elves could do this, right? Like
If you're mono green, I suppose you could try to play it. Yeah, you'll have the mana.
I'm
But as
digging
soon
I'm
as
digging
you're
deep.
Golgari elves,
Yeah,
like,
I'm digging deep. I'm digging deep.
yeah, maybe it's playable in mono green elves.
So essentially, we're saying, yeah, don't play this.
I don't think it's good.
I like destroy permanent. I like the versatility.
It looks really
I
nice.
want to play it. I want to. Do I? No.
If your deck makes 8 mana consistently and has nothing to do with it, maybe it's for you. But my decks are usually doing something with that mana.
Play better cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
um. All right. So last but not least, let's move on to Vessel of Endless Rest. Um. I don't have much to say about this except for exactly what we've been saying. I've seen it in Abdo.
It's it's cute as a little piece of recursion if your deck really needs that. Um or for flicker decks if you need a way to if you've made infinite mana, you can actually like refill your deck with this and then draw your cards again and cast everything in your deck again. So this is a win condition in those flicker decks as well. If you want to put Bolt to the bottom of your deck, draw it, cast it, put Bolt to the bottom of your deck, draw it, cast it. Stuff like that. But yeah, outside of decks that are using this for a combo, I don't think it's great.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
It
play it.
It is also from a graveyard, so it's another cute little piece of grave hate, but it is on ETB. during your turn, probably, unless you're playing like the commander that gives your artifacts flash.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not a
pretty
fan.
mediocre.
Yeah, not a fan. Um, not a fan. We actually did miss one because it's not listed in what we made for Mana Rock. So I did
Springleaf drum?
save. No,
No.
Bronze Walrus. So
Oh yeah, that one.
that's our last one of the day, like our true last one. Um, I feel that this Bronze Walrus falls into. So let me just say what it does real quick, because I'm not sure if people even know this one because of how new it is. Just it enters the battlefield. It is a 2/2 creature, and it's a walrus, and it scries 2, and then it taps and adds 1 mana of any color. It's a 3 mana 2/2. Um, it's not truly a mana rock, but it's kind of like one of those cards we're just including in here because it falls into that 3 mana category. But it can't tap right away because it is a creature, so
Yeah,
it does. It
it's a
is
mana
something sick.
dork.
Yeah. So I would be playing Ornithopter of Paradise. I'd be playing other things over this one for sure. Um,
Yeah,
unless you're
I
playing them all, I don't see why you would play this one because it's susceptible to all removal, right?
I play it in Liara because it's 0 mana sometimes, and it can attack, and it's a mana rock, and the ETB is very good for Liara. So in
Yep.
Liara specifically, very good card. But yeah, typically not gonna see much play.
Yeah. Agreed. 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 But let's say our top three here, and let's end this up. So let me start here with my top three. All right. All right. It's gonna be a little bit of a. All right. Here we go. Here we go. I'm starting with Commander Sphere. I think it's the best 3 mana rock. Um, the sack with my playstyle is specifically why I'm choosing the Commander Sphere. I like that 0 mana sack it even after I tap it. I don't have to have any other stipulations. Use it, sack it. It's good for Dargo. It's good for control style aspects, and it's at any time. Love the card a lot. Right after that, I'm going to use the lockets specifically. And the reason I say the lockets is because they draw 2 cards on sacrifice. I know it's a huge investment, but the lockets, in once again a control deck style, I could continue to refill my hand. 2 is better than 1 always, right? So we're always going to net 2 cards. Bigger investment, bigger payoff. So I'm a big fan of that. And then if I was going to pull teeth, I'm gonna go with Bonder's Ornament because I do play it in decks, but there's argument that I will be replacing it with Network Terminal here soon in the near future.
Yeah, I think this is interesting because it'll kind of reflect our decks as well for what we choose as our top three.
Oh yeah.
Um, my number one is Bonder's Ornament. I think it's the
Oh.
best 3 mana rock. Um,
Ooh.
I think it's pretty good in any deck that wants to play some kind of late game and or hold up interaction and then get rewarded for not having to use that interaction. And yeah, there is the little quote unquote stacks piece where it's everyone has one and no one activates it. It doesn't happen very often, but it can. Number two,
Oh, it's kind of rough. It's kind of rough.
and I want to say Commander Sphere, but I don't play it. So
If
like
if you don't play it, you can't say it.
exactly.
Let's be honest. Like I
Um
play these actively in my decks.
yeah, so for stuff that I actively play, number two is probably Honored Heirloom.
Oh,
Uh
the dagger.
I Honored Heirloom has saved my butt plenty. So
Yeah.
I think it's good. And not only that, but once it's in play, it's uncounterable grave spot removal. So
I can see
that
that.
helps out as well against those decks that are like, there's an Honored Heirloom in play. I can't win.
I
Which
can
is
see
always
it.
funny. And then it's probably Network Terminal for me. as 3. I really like mana rocks that can draw cards passively when you don't have to use them as mana rocks.
I can see it.
So that's my number 3.
Yep, I could see it. I could see it. It's just
Yeah.
I can't say we could go to 5 on this, right? Like it's not enough. Like it's very specific list, and
Yeah, I'd probably go Locket and then Commander Sphere if I were to go to 5. But
I mean,
yeah,
if I go to 5, I couldn't because I don't play those, right? Like I think the fountain is awesome, right? But
which is funny because
I don't play it.
speaking about how we can't go to 5 is hilarious because I tend towards 10 to 15 additional mana sources with
Oh,
alongside lands. So I play a lot of mana rocks, but I still don't play that many 3 mana rocks.
yep,
So if that says anything about them,
yep. It just kind of is what it is. But Puzzle, I want to appreciate you for doing this Mana Rock video with me. I really hope it helps a lot of newer players. This is kind of like who we're kind of trying to target here. If you're new to the format, you kind of want to see like kind of what our point of views are on these cards specifically, and kind of like the whole aspect of Mana Rocks in general, especially if you're coming from a legacy CEDH or like modern or things of that nature. You kind of see like the overview of the format here with the Mana Rocks, right? So we're just trying to kind of help point you in the right direction, not trying to make the decision for you. Like at no point am I trying to say like never ever ever play, you know, Vessel of Endless Rest. Like I still think there are scenarios that could be played. Do I play it personally? No. I am kind of mean on a few of the rocks, let's be realistic, but you know, there are reasons why you can't just say I'm playing this in competitive magic to play it. You're not playing competitive magic though, right? Like you have to give real reasons why you're playing Darksteel Ignite, right? And like Puzzle here specifically used it earlier. Oh, we can animate it and go to Beat Town. That's a great reason why you play that, right? Like that's awesome.
if
But
you can justify it, cool. If you can't,
yep,
I probably wouldn't play it.
exactly. So, but Puzzle, where can they find you if they'd like to join your YouTube?
I'm on YouTube. My channel is Puzzlebox. The tag is Puzzlebox DC. So you can check me out there. I do Pauper gameplay, Pauper Commander gameplay, just deck techs and all that other good stuff.
Perfect. And I'll be getting you on a lot of CEDH games here soon. So we do
Yeah,
some.
hopefully we can join in on that too.
Oh yeah. So I'll be doing a lot of CEDH guys and a lot of Popper. So definitely. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us, and till next time.